Hey, family, welcome to another deposit on these airways. This is Bishop John Seldes, and I'm here on a regular basis to have relevant conversations with some of the best, the brightest, the smartest, the most faithfulest. I don't know. I can't find the words to use. But most of the folk that we get the opportunity to interface with are people that I know, people that I know that know, folk who are serious about the work, about God's work, and doing it in the public square. I am grateful and I am so pleased that you are here with us. I'm on location, y'all. I'm about God's business. And doing it the way I know how to do it. But we wanted to come on tonight and have a few moments. And my brother, indeed, my brother from another mother. That's the way they say it. But I feel like we really brothers. We just somehow, the family got bigger. You know. And some of y'all know what I'm talking about. You got peoples that got peoples, and indeed, my brother is my brother, and I'm so grateful to God that God saw fit to allow us to understand one another, come together and do the work and share the work with one another. Let me bring to this platform our brother, a dear brother indeed, from LA, from Los Angeles, California, but he lives in Connecticut. That's how we said. That's how we said. And we've been here long enough. He and I both have been in Connecticut long enough that while we're not from Connecticut, we got some passes to be. I'm sort of kind of New Englander. I'm sort of kind of a New Englander, and he is too. Let me bring to this platform our brother, the Reverend Dr. Anthony L. Bennett, the pastor of the Mount Airy Baptist Church in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Welcome, sir.
Greeting, my brother. How you doing, man?
Doing what it is I know how to do in these times. Listen. I grew up, I grew up in the Sanctified Church, and they'd have testimony service, and they would, and there was some various and sundry sayings and tropes that got used during testimony service. Giving honor to God, who's the head of my life. We pay honor and due respect to Elder, Bishop, Reverend, so-and-so, and his lovely wife. And you go down to, and at the end, they would say, pray for me that I be who the Lord is calling for in these last and evil
In
days.
evil days. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What look like to me, we might be in them days, them evil days, those
Yes,
days.
sir. Yes, sir.
I'm like you have been shaken, I guess, in some respects. In other respects, okay, here you go. This is it's further down the line, but I'm just appalled at what's happened over the last, can we say 30 days
Yeah.
or so in Minneapolis. And of course, Chicago ain't far off my mind, and the stuff going on there. We had our brother, brother Reverend Dr. Earl Fisher on, who was talking about Memphis a few weeks ago, and been talking with several of our family across this country as we are in conversation about this moment. And if we could begin our conversation right there, what you got to say in this time? I mean, we both pastor churches, and we both speak to folk on a regular basis, trying to interpret, trying to hear from God, trying to see what it is that God would have us to be engaged and involved in. And let me just say, for the record, I can't do everybody's everything these days. I don't have the capacity nor the inclination. Can I say that? And y'all don't be mad at me. So I got to really, really be judicious about where I am placing effort, time, and energy. And so I'm asking God, where would you have me be? Where would you have me go? When I go and when I'm being somewhere, what would you have me say? So what is God saying to you, brother?
Man, good evening to you, my brother. You said from another mother. I will make sure it's my mother who is getting over you, joining me or me joining you several years ago when we got arrested. But I think she's working on forgiving you. She's 92, so she's working on that pretty well, Doc. So we'll say that. But you are my brother, beloved, and we thank God for you, man. You and Pam, Lady Pam, Don, and I love you all. And we've been through the highs and the lows and all around together. So we're thankful for family. I think given that these are particular times and particular manifestations of what Black folk have been dealing with since we've come to these shores. And that is the sense that whites have relegated our humanity beneath theirs and have sought to remind us of that. And so down through the centuries. And so this current manifestation, brother, if my truth is both from a community leader, a pastor, and a man who has a household, I am, when I think about all these things, and then as a Black man, I am probably mixed with a variety of things, a variety of feelings, a variety of thoughts. Like you, I came to Bridgeport from Brooklyn at 28, and it was just me and Donna. And so, of course, I had all the energy, all the New York energy, all the stuff, a part of any and everything here, what we were going to do, and just help transform Bridgeport. And now 32 years later, I think wisdom has caught up with me to understand that I can't do everything. And so I still want to be there, still want to lend my voice and support here locally. I want to commend again the efforts of some of the persons we've seen, the younger generation, not the next generation, but the younger generation, Bobby Brown and those of the NACP and other groups that that are either on the streets, in all the workshops, trying to put connections with what you and I and others in previous generations have tried to fight against, and I think this may lead to sort of where we are and what I minister to, this particular moment of fighting, of trying to convince people that there is this sinister plot to continue to defame and dehumanize Black and brown people. And it comes in so many ways. And no matter what Black folks say, some of our good partners and white folk never seem to quite get it. That somehow or another explaining certain situations away, where I think now the broader white community is seeing it happen to their own. I know President Obama got in a whole lot of trouble when he spoke about one of the shooting victims, murder victims, that could have been my son. Trayvon could have been my son. And he caught a whole lot of flack. And what you hear from congressional leaders is, that could have been somebody. I can relate, to young Alex and to Sister Good. So there's this identification in this broad population, but not when it was Black and brown people. So I think, again, if I'm truthful, some of the people I preach and teach to every Sunday, they feel some kind of way. And so pastorally, I've got to at least create some space for that. And people who even don't go to church, but who speak on Facebook and who speak in this moment. It's not a matter of abandoning the movement, because I believe we are in it. But I think pausing long enough to acknowledge what we feel. Some of the elders who were in civil rights down in South Carolina in the 50s and 60s, and what they felt like when Dylan Roof was escorted in a police car and given Burger King and talked about, white privilege. And when I hear some of the commentary today from some of our white brothers and sisters, it's a lot of emotion, a lot of mixture, where people are now creating these feelings, or believing they have these feelings around, what this time in history is. They make the comparisons to Nazi Germany and sort of just skip all over, our history, our struggle of Jim Crow. And my mother, your mother, lived in through that. My mother from Winona, Mississippi. And so, and the people that I pastor, they're from places down south. And when they hear those commentaries, it is, even in this moment, a feeling of overlooking and erasure. And yet, police brutality is real. And yet, immigration enforcement is abusive in this moment. And so we're wrestling, Doc. I think, if I'm truthful, I'm wrestling with it. And we're going to show up. We're going to be where we need to be. But even if that's not everywhere we used to be, but I've got to own what I think I'm feeling that I can't always articulate, and what some other people are feeling that they can't always articulate about being in corporate boardrooms, or being in a administrators meeting, or being in a professor's meeting, and you say something very clear and articulate, and people just look at you with a blank face, but someone white says it. And it's like, wow, that's a great revelation. So it's this invisible to who someone said, all right? The invisible man, invisible to who? And so Doc, I'm struggling with this thing, Doc. But though I am resolved that we're gonna keep fighting, but I do struggle with it from time to time. So that's how I'm doing in entering into this conversation now.
I got you. I got you. It's very interesting that you would go down this avenue. I'm reading a book called When It's Darkness on the Delta. The byline or the subject of this book I'm reading is how America's richest soil becomes the poorest land. And it's a book about Mississippi. And it's a book about the activism and the work of days gone by, and how that work now has some very real implications today. Now let me set this up really quickly. Your mama from Winona, Mississippi. My mama from Waynesboro, Mississippi. Waynesboro. Let me speak. The King's Queen's English, but the way they pronounce it is Waynesboro, and Mississippi. It ain't Mississippi. It's Mississippi, right? And the conversation that the author is having, his name is W. Ralph Eubanks, is documenting the journey of folk, both Black and others, Native peoples, in that conversation around the struggle that was ensued there in Mississippi. And let me also say the largest number of Black people in one state in the United States of America is in Mississippi. If ever Black people are to have power in a state, it should all be Mississippi, because we got the numbers there. However, the struggle for just some of what you just laid out, the struggle to be seen and heard, and this author has chronicled several related stories, and he's talking about Emmett Till, and he's talking about that region of the Delta, in particular the northern region of Mississippi, and how talking about Mount Bayou, and there are a number of different towns and counties that were engaged. You can't mention Mississippi. You got Emmett Till. You got to talk about Medgar Evers and the work in Jackson and the work that the NAACP and others did. You got to talk about Fannie Lou Hamer. You got to talk about the work that SNCC did back in the modern, the golden era of the civil rights movement, if you want to call it that. You got to talk about, some of the work that went on, in generations past. And now the setup is, what is the work that now has to be done? And for me, and you and I have had this conversation, I've turned my attention, at least in part, to the work we got to do on the ground where we are, where we live in. And the work that we got to do in the states and the municipalities. Here in Connecticut, for example, while we have 6 counties, we don't see ourselves very much in a county kind of way.
No, not at all.
We see ourselves as 69 different towns and cities. And everybody got the same voice and the same votes statewide. And so we've got to make some decisions and do the kind of raw, both, I would say, community work, community organizing, and then there are some political implications of such. It still amazes me to no end that our major cities are chocolate towns, but they don't have chocolate interest. I can't get no help here, but you know what I'm saying. And so right. I sit in this moment where you got we got a president, we got leadership.
Somebody in the office.
Yeah, we got somebody that is an occupier of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, and D.C. That's how my people would say it. We got people who are doing and saying and mimicking and parroting ideologies that I find as troubling as I could take it. I find some of this stuff is troubling as I can tell you. And authoritarianism run amok. It's as if we have, we've just flipped over into something else. And let me be very clear. I was talking with my beloved just the other day, and we were down deep into the theorizing, as you can do when you're with your beloveds. And we were theorizing deeply stuff she's heard me say for a lot of years. And she said, "What you explain that to me?" And I used all them highfalutin, all the erudite language that I could. She said, "Yeah, but that don't make no sense to me." And then she came back with some eruditeness. Here we go. And now I had to do some explaining, and I had to think through, what is it that I am really suggesting and meaning when because I'm clear, we never had a democracy. I'm very clear. What we have had has benefited a few and never was to benefit people that look like you and I. Let's be clear. And that we got anything, we had to get it because we was fighting for a tooth and nail. And I'm not sure today I'm willing to fight for any of it any longer. So let me put some on what you've already named. I'm not it never did work for us. When we went to a whole civil war, 4 years later, we got 14th, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, and it took only about 10 years for that to go boom up in smoke. Right? So, and 20 years later, we got separate but equal. And that was the law of the land. Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. And it was only when the Voting Rights Act and the Public Accommodations Act a year before that were signed into law, 100 years after the end of the Civil War. Talk to me here. That then we can maybe say, okay, we might be, and let's really be clear, all that's been canceled out now. All that's gone. So here we are in this moment. And so, I think to myself, what is it that you want to see? What is it that God is leading you into? What are the ways that you need to move and act and be? And so I'm finding some of those ways within collaboration with some of our other brothers and sisters across the country and across our state in Connecticut in particular. And so I'm finding some good work coming out of the immigrant rights and movement in Connecticut. I'm finding some good work with folk who are responding to the needs of folk in a kind of holistic way. They're doing wraparound services. I mean, from the work that many of us who are from the Black tradition understand. We had to build our own schools. We had to build our own institutions. We had to build our own organization because there wasn't none. There weren't none for us. And so we're tapping back into some of that. And others are now needing to see that, one, they come in, y'all didn't respond in the ways y'all needed to respond, in a consistent way with us. Now you see they're coming for you. Now they're coming for you. You ain't safe either. And so here we are in this moment, and I'm not going nowhere, right? I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on marching and keep on walking. I'm going toward freedom land. Ooh, I feel my help right there.
There you go.
However,
There you go.
let me also say that it's going to be, the need is greater than what you and I and some of us who've been out there on that line can lift and do on our own. Mhm. And I'm not gonna catch the first. Let
Hmm.
me. I'm gonna say it one more time, y'all.
Say
Some
it,
of
say
y'all.
it for the black peaches. That
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna be the first to catch it. I'm gonna be in the. I'm gonna be in the back somewhere now. I might be there, but I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be right. Some others are gonna have to step forward. Some others are gonna have to put something on it. Some others are gonna have to take the risk that we've been most often willing to risk. Some others are gonna have to pay. Some others are gonna have to front. Some others are gonna have to lose some stuff and lose some relationships. And let me keep the ones I got.
that's right. That's right. That's right. That you own it, Doc. You own it, Doc.
You know,
Um,
this is the time we've got to figure out now. I don't know if we're figuring it out. I think we got to come to some resolves, right? Come to some resolves. Now, we probably should talk about what we're doing coming up here. Um, we are connected. I was in a conversation with a colleague, and what I said to my colleague is that what I know for sure is that, where we have some credibility, you and I both, these times, is with the communities that are the communities that are within the context of the broader community. We have relationship with folk who are on the ground doing work day for day, and then not necessarily those that are in the faith community, clearly and straight way. Now they are responding in faithful ways. So let me be clear about that.
right.
But where maybe I got credibility, where I wouldn't have been able to say that before. I would have thought, well, I got some folk that have come around, I can call on some folk, and let me just say, I'm not woe's me. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
There is some ability for us to gather, put some folk in the room, put some folk in some spaces, and go get the work done. However, that our relationships have to be broader than that, and so you're hosting, along with the Monterey Church, an event. One of our brothers is coming to share, and why don't you talk a little bit about that, and we'll spend a little bit of time lifting up what I think are some important themes and some important things to be thinking about as we move in this moment.
Man, yeah, we are focused, man. Listen, you said so much stuff before. I got to at least grab a couple little nuggets from what you said earlier, Doc. One of my, or my little one, my precious little one, woke up. So she is not on camera, but she is in space with Papa. So I will say this, Doc. I think these are times where we need to draw on the ancestors, times where, like you said, we need to find out what our lanes are, what medicine Reverend Dr. Itahari Ture, affectionately known as Mama Itahari, speaks about the village, and everyone brings a particular medicine for the healing of the village. And I think the truth of the matter is, it never was and it never will be any one institution, one place, one person to do it all. Some would challenge the notion of the single charismatic leader. Dr. King was able certainly to galvanize, and he had a particular kind of courage in the midst of his own struggle to let this cup pass. and ultimately paid the ultimate price, for which, none of us need to, have any sharp critique without also being willing to offer our own selves, to the situation in the same way. I'm always mindful of people who know how to run the church. The only people who know how to run the church better than the people who are running the church are often people who ain't never run the church. And often the people who know how everything ought to go are generally the people who ain't never had that kind of weight and responsibility. All right. There may be a couple of exceptions of people who have wisdom and insight, but for the most part, so I think most of us leaders over the years, local and national, have had to sort of learn how to deal with people and what they share with a grain of salt. Right. I say all that to say that I think you're absolutely correct. Because of the situation we're in now, we must return to the ways that on some level we abandoned during integration. Some of us abandoned during integration and desegregation, I should say, and return to this sense of mutual aid society, and I think in some instances, local nonprofits, social service nonprofits are engaged in that kind of work across this country. Like you said, they may not have the national platform, but they're doing the day-to-day work in people's lives. Immigration, we have, some immigration organizations here in Bridgeport, social service. We have a few social service agencies. Two of the largest social service agencies run by Black women who bring their own sense of history and their own sense of being overlooked, yet they both have a sense of know-how and wisdom from their experience, to really cut through it and do what they need to do to provide the kind of services to often marginalized and overlooked communities. I think the one last thing I'll say, but I think is a pathway for Pastor McBride. I think a part of the legitimate critique that comes from those who associated with the local church or the Black church, and now see more of the complexity, and not finding the clarity they need, but finding the clarity in non-religious organizations where they can still fight the political fights, the cultural advocacy, and sort of other marginalized fights. I think at the end of the day, though, the institution of the Black church is still there for Black people. By and large, it is the only institution for Black people that is still standing, wobbling maybe at times, but still standing. And I think there's another generation of men and women who are raised up not to fleece the Black church, not to say the Black church has been everything that it needed to be, but if it's not gaslighting, the intention is not gaslighting, but the reality is, what seems like everybody has latitude for every institution in every group of people except the Black church. I got mixed company, so I can't say everything that I want to say in the way that I want to say it. But it's like, okay, and there, what's underneath the radar is not the sensational pastor that gets the thousands and millions of clicks, but it is the everyday brother and sister, gay, straight, divorce, family, all trying to do the best they got with the resources. Many of them did not have the privilege of having federal assistance. All right. That's why it sort of burns me when I hear people say, which sometimes is their experience, is other times is somebody else's experience that they then want to harp on in terms of the smaller percentage of pastors who fleece the flock. Majority of pastors are not going to have their large platforms, and they're doing the best they can with what they can. And in a real sense, Ella Baker organized a lot of those churches, and did a lot of that work. Dr. King got some of the spotlight and the branch and the pathway, but the internal kind of challenge and tension of charismatic leader and sort of broad-based organizing kind of efforts. I think they both offered something and contributed to the civil rights. I think today is also true. All right. We all may have our critique of some of the larger, well-known pastors and ministers. And we let them do what they do in their lane. However, most of us will pastor who we pastor in the communities that we share, and we want to know, how do we organize? How do we do what we do? Enter Mike McBride. Mike McBride, who pastor, she's from the Bay Area, tremendous, grew up in the Pentecostal tradition. Matter of fact, you knew of him, you engaged him even before I did. But what I did know of him was he was not the stereotypical Pentecostal preacher that we knew that only talked about holiness or hell. But he also tried to speak about the hell that people were facing in their communities around gun violence, around police brutality, around other issues in urban settings. And I think he had his own sort of metamorphosis, his own kind of recommitment, reawakening to not separating one's personal salvation with one's social responsibility and commitment. And I think over the decades that he's been a part of this public life, he's done a number of things, sort of tapping into what you spoke about around political action. And so being one of the founders of the Black Church PAC, as well as To Live Free USA, as a number of organizations that he's been a part of, both in the local and the regional and national network, to really raise awareness to congregations, small, large and small, faith communities who want to connect and build bridges between those who have a level of spirituality but don't necessarily belong to the institutional church. And I think his journey has led him ultimately to coming to Mount Airy. He was approached by Jameen Davis, who's executive director of Bridgeport Generation Now, which is a local advocacy organization in Bridgeport. And she was so inspired by him and so inspired by the words of what could happen in local communities, that she said, man, wish she could come to Bridgeport. She reached out, shared with me. I reached out to a few other folks, and she reached out to some more folk, and reached out also to you. And here we are. He's going to come and come on Saturday, the 31st, to ultimately give us perspective nationally but also locally. Some of the things that are happening. Sometimes they say an expert is anybody 50 or more miles away, in the sense that, most of us are doing and we're doing the grind and we're in it in our own ways. All right. And sometimes it takes someone from the outside to say, y'all ain't as off as you think. You are. It's just each of us have our own particular lanes and areas to engage, and particular medicines to contribute to the overall work. And I know sometimes it is frustrating where we want everybody to see what we see and everybody to rally around the way we rally around. But I think we realize we're being human. We are all different manifestations of what it means to be human. And so he's going to come in and share with us dialogue. Matter of fact, we're going to ask you you've been asked to sort of mix up a dialogue, because you all spent some time in Ferguson together and running similar network circles around social justice. So I think he's not coming to try to tell us what to do or coming to try to tell us we ain't doing it. He's just trying to give us perspective on what's happening and how we can collaborate together, not try to proselytize each other, but just work together to make sure that equity and justice happens in Connecticut.
All right. Yes, Brother McBride, we've known each other for a little bit now.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I've known of his family and the work that they've done in the Bay Area even longer than our more recent times. And I've from a distance applauded the effort and the way they've approached the work. And so here we are. Iron sharpens iron. I think I'm in the book when I say that. And so let's be in some discourse and dialogue. And better yet, let's talk strategy. Let's talk ways of operating and doing and maneuvering. Let's steal away. Ain't got
long to be here. Haven't got long to be here.
Listen,
home.
Listen, green trees are bending. Poor sinners
sounds within of my soul. I know y'all in the black church, y'all who ain't in the black church don't know what we just did. Right
there. So
haven't got long to be
here. Here we are. We need the Brush Harbor moments. We need the big rally moments, but we also need the more strategic, the more conversational, the more how do we deploy what we know? When do we hold up? When do we step in? When do we go back?
Doc.
Yes,
can I push you a little bit on that?
Yes.
One of our brothers, Derek Rice, just recently completed his D.Min. Doctorate of Ministry at the ITC in Atlanta. And the chair of his doctoral committee, the Reverend Dr. Adolphus Lacey, lifted up Dr. Derek Rice, alluded to and spoke about what he was offering was considered a hush harbor. And Dr. Adolphus Lacey reminded him and all of us in that piece that making it to a hush harbor was itself a risky proposition.
Absolutely. It was resistance work.
It was resistance work. It was a work that you don't know if they were going to catch you, and if they caught you, you might suffer physical consequence. And I think a part of what we have to include, as you mentioned, Hush Harbor, is the reality that a part of the strategy is that there are different people coming from different places to get where they are now. Now, I'm not talking about the other folks outside of our community. I'm talking about on some of our communities. As we both mentioned our own weariness, but I also hear elders like Ruby Sales, who you connected us to, who even in this moment, read her post, she speaks about respite. And I know the work that she did healing space during the Ferguson uprising. And on some level, perhaps a part of the strategy for some of us who may not take the first hit, is to be that voice of wisdom and to help be some bridges for folk who are risking some stuff in this process, who thought they were invincible, and thought that those of us who pursue these kinds of social justice Black ministry was somehow another estranged from the God. We weren't praying right. We didn't have the right formula. And they soon discovered that they were not as they were not as invincible as they thought. That no matter, I think it was Dr. West who reached and said, there's a level of dignity that this country does not respect at all. And so when you talk about trying to risk making it to a hush harbor so that your dignity can stay intact, to do whatever ministry, whatever service you believe, to perform whatever medicine you need to perform for the broader community. I think that's going to be, because that might be the strategy. Because, I think I'm learning, no matter who's at the mic, there were a whole lot of people who helped get that person to the mic.
Yes, sir.
Whoever's in that position, there were a whole lot of people who helped that person get to that position. And,
yes, sir.
And to get so the question is, how do we in this moment create those hush harbors and help people know it's worth the risk? I got to say this, Doc, and then I'm done. Reverend C.C. Jones Davis, I believe she may have been one of your students while she was at Yale. She a brilliant young lady, doing such great work with Michael McBride and others, Reverend Tracy Blackman, and so many others around the country, along with us, what we're doing here. But one of the things that I discovered, that she is just recently convening Sunday Zoom conversations with those, I don't know if you've seen it, with those who have been Trump supporters, but who are ready to get off the Trump train.
All right.
And looking for a space where they can get their transfer ticket. Because sometimes, all right, we who are clergy and believers, some would accuse that of both sides, and some would say on the left that we don't give people the space. We can be like Jonah, and we want to make sure they don't repent, so that we don't have to
go the other way.
We don't have,
right. Go the other way.
And if it was not someone the caliber and the discernment and the gravitas and the experience of Reverend C.C. Jones Davis, I may have second guesses, but the fact that she is realizing that a part of the lane in which she must is you ain't gonna be in the front of the line, but we are going, we want to extend, because we're not going to kill your humanity.
That's right.
As the other side is. And I thought that was a very powerful piece. And on some level, I hear Pastor McBride in that. Again, we're not talking about a surface and a naive and a reconciliation the way that we see these false white evangelical churches try to engage in. But this is a reckoning moment.
Right.
This is a reckoning moment. And so, we go ahead, Doc.
No, I'm going to say, so we got a few minutes left.
Yes, sir.
the event on Saturday, January 31st, at let me get this right, 70 Frank Street,
73 Frank Street. It will be
73.
73.
73.
73. Put that three, put that Trinity on it, Doc. Trinity College.
73 Frank Street
73.
in Bridgeport, Connecticut
Yeah,
on
the
this
number of
Saturday.
completion and the number of the Trinity, Doc. Come
And
on.
listen, go on. What time? What time is the
It's
gathering?
going to be from 9 until around 10:30. If y'all push us, we'll go to 11, but 9 to about 10:30. He will be there with us. There'll be a light correlation. But ultimately we
Ain't
want
gonna
to hear
be grits and toast and stuff.
no,
Just
baby.
just
Coming in before you get there. But we will have some sandwiches, breakfast sandwiches, and some fruit and some juice and coffee. So juice and coffee. So come and you will be engaged intellectually and your heart. We know he has a great presentation for us. And then we've invited you to come and engage and be with him and the audience, because right now we're looking for a great number. We have a number of people. If you can go on Bridgeport Generation Now, their Facebook page, you can register. You can go on Mount Airy's Facebook page. You can register so that it is no fee. We're just trying to get an ideal of the numbers. Right now, we have 60 or 70 people that have registered. So we look early in the morning to have a pretty decent crowd to engage with some of the issues that you talked about. What is strategy?
yeah.
We're not talking about joining any one particular organization. We're not talking about advocating for any one particular candidate. We are talking about what strategies should we be thinking about as the Black church, as the faith community, in Bridgeport and Connecticut.
Yes.
In Connecticut.
So we put the call out, and people respond when you put the call out. And we got somebody here that's somebody. I mean somebody. Listen, you run into some folk and you get to brush up on some folk who are actually doing the thing, right?
Uh-huh.
And they're doing the thing where you want them to be doing it, right? Some people be doing the thing, and you be like, ain't that sweet? But it ain't. They off Broadway. But sometimes people be on the great way. They be on it. They be down the path, and we got somebody. Listen, they just jumped on. Just poof, and they hear that. I love this technology. It lets us do a thing. Bro, would you introduce our friend and brother from the Twin Cities? He's out there doing
Lord.
From the
man,
thing.
I love it. Listen, y'all. I think that we're gonna have to do a part 2 because I know our time's about out. So I want to bring our brother Dr. Uhuru Williams. He is professor at St. Thomas University in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He is from Bridgeport. There's so much I say. I want him to introduce himself, but I am so delighted and honored that he is in the thick of things, y'all, in Minneapolis. And I'm thankful that on a quick notice, he came in Central Time. He is doing so much, but I'm thankful that he is coming in to spend the last 5 to 7 to 10 minutes with us. And Doc, we gonna look to see if we get his schedule together, get him back here with us as well.
Yes, sir. Come on in the room and greet you, Doc.
Good to see you, man. You, Pastor. Pastor Bennett, so great to see you, brother.
Man, it's so great to see you, man. Thank you, brother, for the responding. I'm so honored, man, that you responded. And man, you have just gone and made so many of us proud in Bridgeport, man. I'm thankful that you claimed me and Brother Craig Kelly as persons who invested in you back in the day. And man, we're just so proud of all the work that you've done, man. Can you just briefly just share a little bit of your journey, and then we last 5 minutes, if we can, just talk about what's happening in Minneapolis.
I appreciate having been born in Bridgeport. Took the opportunity, having kind of grown up in the midst of the struggles that we had in our city and in Connecticut. And Bishop, I know this is part of your work with Moral Mondays. I'm really kind of centering racial justice around the ways in which these tentacles of oppression impact communities of color, and the lessons that people don't draw from what happens with our community that ultimately end up coming back to haunt them because they weren't intentional in thinking about the ways in which what I like to call the 6 degrees of segregation end up implicating the United States and individuals who aren't committed to racial justice, that ultimately the entire architecture of our republic is founded on a civil theology, which we violate constantly. And so in Minneapolis right now, this is an occupied city in the midst of a mass mobilizing movement to push back against federal policy here, which has really, animated the way that people have been active since Operation Metro Surge began in December. And yet at the same time, as you and Pastor Bennett were talking about, Bishop, there's this big question now about whether we need a mass organizing movement right now, more along the lines of what you've been working toward in Connecticut for a long time. What is the broader strategy? What are the demands? How do we lean in a way that intentionally builds networks that can replicate and not only mobilize people to be out in the streets for one day, but to be active and thinking about how we are involved in transformational change on a daily basis. So we actually have an agenda and a platform, and we're not looking for leaders or scrambling for policy in the midst of a crisis or an emergency, but that we're actually kind of leaned in, dialed in, and ready to go, and thinking big about how we address not only these challenges that, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'll just say, folks always forget, at least in terms of our community, that these issues began because people have been running from dealing with America's original sin, which is slavery. So the reality is right now, this whole question over immigration is about birthright citizenship. Birthright citizenship comes into the lexicon in the aftermath of the Civil War in the form of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. So the reality is that at the core, this is about Black folks. And I hear a lot of people in our community, I just came from a community conversation, sometimes go, this isn't our fight. But as both of you gentlemen know, you in particular, Pastor Bennett, because I've been in the church many times when you have raised this issue, that at the end of the day, it's always our fight. It always comes down to us in some way. So we have to be at the forefront of this, I think, in a way that, as we just paused to commemorate Dr. King's birthday, he was famous for saying, we have to develop an attitude of creative maladjustment, because there's some things we should never become adjusted to. And I think what's happening now with the nation as a whole is, and we saw this with the murders of Renee Nicole Good here and Alex Preddy, some people have become adjusted to the violation of civil rights when it happens to Black people, but not, or people of color, but not so much when it comes to their doorstep. And I think now, and I'm grateful for the white activists who are out in large numbers here, but this is a time for all of us to be engaged and be thinking about how we contribute to that agenda, not a time for anybody to be on the sidelines.
Brother, I appreciate you naming some things. Here's what I think is doubly important for us right now. I'm no longer, not that I was really looking for it anyway, but I'm no longer looking for the help somewhere else. I'm not looking for the great wonders to come through and somehow we enter into a new era of freedom and liberty. If we gonna be free, we better free our own selves, right? Here. And to participate in that those liberative moments means that it just can't be driven by how I feel alone. Now I feel a lot of ways, and I'm feeling some type of way. And Pastor Bennett, brother, and I've been talking about some of the ways I feel, right? Some of the ways we feel. We've been talking on it, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not looking as well for something to happen outside of me, outside of us. Our strength is with us. Our peace is with us. The love that we need to have is right here. The power we have is right here. And if we don't, we got to be careful now. If we don't see that, here's what Howard Thurman said. Howard Thurman says, listen, you better be listening for the sound of the genuine that's in all of us. He said, because if you don't get clear about what the sound of the genuine is calling you to, saying to you, making you, asking you to move, asking you to slow down, asking you to go left, go right. If you don't do that, then you'll be forever on the string of somebody else who's the great puppet master in your life. And so for me, the sound of that sound of the genuine, Howard Thurman, bless his heart, he speaks to me every time I get ready to turn up and I be turned up wrong. He said, whoa, wait a minute, slow up, slow down. There is, the hellhounds are bending, all right? They out there doing their thing, right? But there is a power that's greater than all of the hellhounds. I feel like I'm want to preach here.
Which you die.
Right. So these are the times I think now we need leaders. If we're gonna lean into some leadership, right? We need to let's lean into it, right? And say, you got your part, you got your part, you got your part. I'm thankful for what's happening in Minnesota, Minneapolis, and the Twin Cities. This ground zero, and I've been there. Brad and I was in Ferguson 10 years ago.
Right.
It was a decade ago. We were doing this. It was the same thing. I'm remembering Fernando Castillo in Minneapolis, who was a St. Louisan for me. So that was hometown talking. That this moment is calling for all of us of faith, of conscience, those of us who see our humanity in one another. It's time now to come, let us reason together, saith the Lord. Yeah.
And you mentioned Ferguson, Bishop. I remember they left Michael Brown's body on the ground for almost a day. And the utter lack of dignity in that moment. And I think some people, in this comfortable cocoon that many folks have, never imagined that we would see that on the scale that we're seeing it now nationally, and that it would impact, not just the Black community, but it would be this assault on just the fundamental attributes of citizenship. But what I appreciate what you said and where we need to go is that we really need the church. That foundational structure that existed during the civil rights movement. People often forget Malcolm X is a man of faith, and so is Martin Luther King. So spirituality factors into this, and the way that you talk about and anchor it in a prophetic voice is important, because this is bigger than what's happening on this plane. This is actually about thinking about how we, as John Lewis put it, and I loved it when he said it this way, redeem the soul of America. But we may lose our own souls in the process if we're trying to redeem the soul of this structure at the same time.
Da, listen, I know we got to go in a few minutes, but Da, listen, you just said so much and you said it well. I think the question that I raised as Dr. Bishop Selder spoke about that how have many in the Black community, how have they reconciled? Is it because everything is just so immediately happening that there is this sense of, well, where was this outrage when it was happening with us? What is that like? And then finally, the question is, what can those of us who are not in Minneapolis do?
I love that question, Pastor, because we don't have the luxury like I understand there's this deep resentment in our community in particular that says, where was the outrage when we complained about violence in this form, violation of the law, violation of civil rights? And yet at the same time, this expectation that we had that maybe, just maybe, if people could see it and experience it, then they'd wake up and support us in the ways that we've been talking about, radically reimagining everything from housing to education to access to places of public accommodation. So for us, it's this kind of interesting moment where there are some people who lean into the politics of vengeance, which gave birth to MAGA in the first place. Well, there you go. We talk about Donald Trump. People make this comparison between Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler. You know, Adolf Hitler had a failed coup too, the beer hall putsch. It fails. He's arrested. He's sent to jail. And he writes Mein Kampf in prison, which leans into the politics of grievance. And what happened is, in that book, he sold the German people on, you've been robbed by the Jews and the bakers, other nations. He pokes fun at the United States and says only in certain countries they train a man a half ape till he believes he's a lawyer and allows him to argue in court for his rights. He was talking about us. In the same way that I heard our president last week in Davos say essentially the same thing to the European community about their immigration policies. So when you ask that question, for me, it is absolutely essential that people understand our history and why we never get to sit on the sidelines in this discourse. As good as it is to be vindicated, as we all felt we were in 2020, when we said, this is what we've been saying to you, and you're just seeing it on video. We know the epigenetic harm of it because we experience it all the time. For us, going back to Bridgeport, it's Gary Crooks. You know, Gary Crooks is our George Floyd, right? And that's not even police brutality. That's a little black kid doesn't have a place to play. And a community center blooms from that. And then they defunded that in 1985. So we know we don't have to see this movie. We know the lines. And yet in this moment, as both of you were talking about just before I came on, to lose sight of human empathy and the very things that Dr. King and Howard Thurman and others talked about, that our destinies are interwoven. And to the extent that we can look beyond our own grievance and recognize the hurt that other people are grappling with, and recognize that in this moment, this may be our possibility to elevate to the next level. But we can't do that if we, John Lewis put it best in his final letter to the American people, published posthumously in July of 2020. I call it the Lewis Doctrine. Everybody loved to quote that part where he said, we got to get in good trouble, necessary trouble. I said, y'all got to read the whole thing. Because he said, ordinary people with extraordinary vision have the power to reach the soul of America. So ordinary people with extraordinary vision. How do we develop that extraordinary vision? As a historian, I'm like, well, in the archives, in the books. But as you know, Pastor, without that spirituality, without the Ma'afa, without the work that you're doing, all that history is not going to help you transcend book knowledge to human empathy. So it's that ordinary people, that extraordinary vision through study, through connection. He said we have to have a global outlook, so we can't just be in our own backyard. So in the way that you were talking about, Bishop Selders, when you've been to Brazil and you know it's global for you. A lot of people don't have that consciousness. They didn't see Gaza in what's happening now in Minneapolis. And the last thing he said is that we can never lose sight of our humanity, our shared humanity. And for me, that is, I think, the most powerful thing about this moment. I've never been more proud to live in a community because the way that people have shown up here for their neighbors. And there's this joke about Minnesota nice, and I've said it many times. But in this moment, I have felt at this time, maybe because of the way that this whole thing manifested, that people have been so authentically human in a way that particularly if people could connect this to their spirituality and their learning, maybe we won't replicate the same mistakes of the past. Just maybe. I'm hopeful for that.
All right. But Doc, we thank you so much for joining us for this little bit. Can I ask you to come back and spend a little more time so we can dig deeper? Because I believe it's in the struggle for meaning, right? And that we may find our own witness, right? It's time now to bear witness to injustice. It's time now to bear the burden of liberation, right? It's time now to so let me get real churchy about it. You take up your cross. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So if we could lean into you a bit more in a few weeks, let's make sure we connect and get the information so that we can have some more dialogue around this. Now I'm talking to Connecticut now and New York. Y'all close enough. Saturday morning at 73 Frank Street in Bridgeport. 73. I got it now. 73 Frank Street. We're going to be in some strategy conversation with community folk from across the region and across the state. I'll be there, and others will be there. Dr. Bennett will be hosting, and the Mount Airy Church will be hosting. Now he already said ain't gonna be no grits and eggs and stuff. Don't y'all come in there and be hungry. You have something on the way, and then you can just have some coffee and get a breakfast little muffin or something up. Or we're gonna be done after a while. Then you can go on over there to the restaurant and clean it out, right? But if y'all would, let's come and be prepared to do a little digging, a little more digging, a little more hearing from our brother from California who's been across this country doing the work. Brother Pastor Mike McBride, and a dynamic speaker and leader who will be sharing with us. And listen, between me and Brother Bennett, we're gonna be at this stuff and gonna do it. Listen, we used to sing a song. I don't know if y'all sang it. Y'all was Baptist. I was sanctified. So I don't know if y'all sang.
You 7 Day Adventist. You was 7 Day Adventist.
7 day. I don't know. But we used to sing. I promised him that I would serve him until I die. I'm on the
battlefield.
Yeah. So if you will, like I said, I'm churchy and I'm a preacher, so I can get to preach. I will preach in a moment. I'll be on it right in the moment. Yeah. But anyway, it is this our task, this bearing witness piece, and in all the many places that we can. In the academy, I'm in the academy. We all of us serve in capacities in the academy. I'm in them streets, and I'm in them streets. I've been to Minnesota, I've been to Ferguson. We were down in Baltimore, bro. Great. We came down to Baltimore to bear witness. That's exactly right. We were in Palestine, Israel, bearing witness, right? And it is the call of us again. To do that. I appreciate you, brothers. We got to go. Them people, they only give us a certain amount of time. I appreciate this ain't free 99, but it ain't, these forms will allow us to be on here and we be less censored and to speak the truths that we do and can speak. I appreciate you both. Thank you, brother. Listen,
thank you, Dr. Williams. Thank you, Dr. Williams.
Thank you, sir.
Love you, Pastor Bennett. Thank you for having me.
You too, man. We'll definitely be in touch soon, man. Get some rest if you can. Get a nap. Get a nap, brother.
The journey is long. Hey, all right. Peace, everybody. We'll see y'all soon. God bless.
Bless you.